Since we've been doing this, coffee consumption in the U.S. has gone up by 50%. This has made the coffee growers in Brazil very happy. I expect to get Christmas and birthday cards from Brazil this year. Now we're working on the second half of Romans chapter 5. So get yourself 3 or 4 cups of coffee and we'll be ready to begin. Romans 5:12-13. So then, just as sin entered the world through one man, and death through sin, and so death spread to all people, because all sinned. For before the law was given, sin was in the world, but there was no accounting for sin when there is no law. How many of you understand that? Raise your hand. All of you raising your hand, remember, lying is not a good thing. I think the confusion comes from where it says no accounting for sin when there is no law. You think about it and it's like, well, wait a minute. There's always been law. When Adam and Eve got kicked out of the Garden of Eden, it's because they basically violated the law not to eat of the tree. Okay, here's what's going on. It's not clear in the text, but every time the word law is used in Romans chapter 5, it's referring to the law. The Ten Commandments, Exodus, Deuteronomy. Remember, just because there's no article in the Greek doesn't mean that it's not the law. Another clue to that is if you look at Romans 5:14 right after it, and yet death reigned from Adam to Moses. Well, what did Moses do? He gave the law. Once you realize that every time it refers to the law here, it's referring to the law of Moses, then the passage becomes much more clear. If we were to paraphrase verse 13, then it becomes more like this. For before the law was given, sin was in the world, but you can't charge them with breaking the law of Moses if the law of Moses wasn't given yet. Romans 5:14. Nevertheless, death reigned from the time of Adam to the time of Moses, even over those who did not sin by breaking a command, as did Adam, who is the pattern of the one to come. Okay, what does he mean by pattern? You can see it in Romans 5:18 and 19. Consequently, just as one trespass resulted in the condemnation of all people, so also one righteous act resulted in justification and the life for all people. For just as through the disobedience of the one man the many were made sinners, so also through the obedience of the one man the many were made righteous. I don't like the way the New International translates 5:14, because it sounds like we die even though we don't do any sins. Nevertheless, death reigned from the time of Adam to the time of Moses, even over those who did not sin by breaking a command, as did Adam. I don't think it's a very good translation, and I'll cover that just a bit more. All through the book of Romans, Paul stresses that people die because they sin. In chapter 2, Paul said, all you got to do is stand in front of God and say, hey, I never sinned. I never did anything wrong. And here, in 12 and 13, you see, so death spread to all people because all sinned. Death didn't spread to all people because Adam sinned. Death spread to all people because all people sinned. Okay, see here we have it again, 514 International, breaking a command. But look at the New English translation, or the Net Bible. Yet death reigned from Adam unto Moses, even over those who did not sin in the same way that Adam sinned. So it's not that we die because Adam sinned. We die because we do our own sin, and it doesn't have to be the same sin that Adam did. Any sin, not just the same kind of sin that Adam did, qualifies us for death. Romans 5:15. But the gift is not like the trespass. So first he says, there's a lot of similarities between what Christ did and what Adam did. They're both types. But in some ways they're very different. If we look at Romans 5:16, then we see how he thinks that they're different. The judgment, followed one sin and brought condemnation, but the gift followed many trespasses and brought justification. Now, when you see the one sin brought condemnation, you immediately think of Adam's sin. But I don't think that's what he's referring to, because if that's the case, then the gift, which followed many trespasses, the many trespasses would be coming from Jesus. In other words, if the one sin was from Adam, then the many trespasses would be from Jesus, and we know that Jesus didn't sin. So what he's saying is, the judgment followed one sin, brought condemnation. That's one sin per person. All you got to do is mess up once, one sin, and you get condemnation. But the gift followed many trespasses and brought justification. So, with Christ, a Christian can sin many times and still be saved. So the gift is much greater than the judgment. So, in summary, through one act of Adam, sin came to all men. Through one act of Jesus, salvation came to all men. Now, if we think about that, through one act of Jesus, salvation came to all men. That doesn't mean all men are saved. The New Testament makes very clear that to be saved, they still have to accept Jesus as Lord. And I think in the same way, through one act of Adam, sin came to all men. I don't think that means all men are punished because Adam sinned. I think all men are punished because of their own sins. Of course, Romans 3 and Romans 5 remind us that we all sin. So the difference is kind of academic because we all sin and deserve punishment.